This is Joe Biden, the commander-in-chief of the military and the resident of the United States. 2 years ago, Biden oversaw the worst foreign policy blunder in United States history. On August 15, 2021, the Taliban seized the capital city of Kabul, and the Afghan government collapsed. For most, the only way out was the Kabul International Airport. Thousands rushed the entrance of the airport, which led to a large-scale evacuation. On August 19, 2021, Biden sat down with George Stephanopoulos to try and downplay the chaos.
I authorized that there be 6,000 American troops to flow in to accommodate this exit, number one, and number two, provided all that aircraft in the Gulf to get people out. We pre-positioned all of that, anticipated that. Now, granted, it took 2 days to take control of the airport. We have control of the airport now.
Still a lot of pandemonium outside the airport.
Well, there is, but look, but no one's being killed right now. God forgive me if I'm wrong about that, but no one's being killed right now.
However, when George Stephanopoulos pointed out to Biden that Afghan citizens had fallen hundreds of feet to their death from wheel wells of C-17s, Biden gave a shocking response.
But we've all seen the pictures. We've seen those hundreds of people packed into a C-17. We've seen Afghans falling.
That was 4 days ago, 5 days ago.
Dozens of Afghan people who were desperate to escape the Taliban died. Instead of Biden pausing for a moment and saying something like, "I know it's tragic, those poor souls," he gives an angry response. "That was days ago! Why are you bringing that up?" And unfortunately, Biden's claim that the Kabul airport was under control did not age well. The chaos never subsided, and in fact, only got worse. On August 26th, the unthinkable happened. A suicide bombing at the airport, killing 11 Marines, 1 Army paratrooper, 1 Navy corpsman, and 170 Afghan citizens.
A tough day. This evening in Kabul, as you all know, terrorists attacked that we've been talking about and worried about, that the intelligence community has assessed, has undertaken an attack by a group known as ISIS-K.
And what is really disturbing is that 3 minutes into Joe Biden's remarks, he mentioned the death of his son, Beau Biden.
Being the father of a Army major who served for a year in Iraq, and before that was in Kosovo as a U.S. attorney for the better part of 6 months in the middle of a war. When he came home after a year in Iraq, he was diagnosed, like many coming home, with an aggressive and lethal cancer of the brain. We lost.
He's comparing the murder of 13 service members by terror attack to his son dying from glioblastoma.
We have some sense, like many of you do, what the families of these brave heroes are feeling today. You get this feeling like you're being sucked into a black hole in the middle of your chest. There's no way out. My heart aches for you.
So Biden's like, "I've experienced a death in the family, so I understand your pain. I'm empathetic that way." In other words, he's making it about him, and it's sick. I mean, imagine if President Ronald Reagan tried to pull that crap during his address to the nation after the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. "My second daughter was born prematurely back in 1947 and died the next day." But Joe Biden, whatever the tragedy, will try and talk about himself. Here he is surveying tornado damage in Kentucky, where 80 people died.
You know, the scope and scale of this destruction is almost beyond belief. When you look around here, it's just almost beyond belief. It was a long time ago. I got a phone call around the holidays and found out that I was in Washington as a young senator, not sworn in yet, about to be hiring staff, and I got a call saying from a first responder that there'd been an accident. A tractor trailer broadsided my wife with a Christmas tree on top and my 3 kids inside. My wife and daughter are dead.
So Biden's like, "I know you may have lost a loved one in one of the tornadoes, but my wife and daughter died in a car wreck 50 years ago." Unreal. Anyway, on August 29th, 3 days after the Kabul bombing, Biden attended the dignified transfer of the 13 US service members, and the following moment was caught on video. Anyone viewing the video can tell that Biden knows that he probably shouldn't be checking his watch, because he did it in a way to try and make it look less obvious that he was looking at it. And the optics from this moment were staggering. It made Biden look impatient. It made him look like he wanted the whole thing to be over with. And who can blame him, because the botched withdrawal happened under his leadership. Joe Biden is ultimately responsible for putting them in harm's way. And he's like, oh, is it over yet?
In reference to the checking of his watch, that didn't happen just once. That happened on every single one that came out of that airplane. It happened on every single one of them. They would release the salute, and he looked down at his watch on every last one, all 13. He looked down at his watch.
Mark,
Yep.
you want to comment on the watch incident? Did you notice the same thing?
Yes, I did. I actually leaned into my son's mother's ear and I said, I swear to God, if he checks his watch one more time, and that was only probably 4 times in, I couldn't look at him anymore after that. Just considering especially the time and why we were there, it was, I found to be the most disrespectful thing I've ever seen.
And the disrespect didn't end at the dignified transfer. It occurred afterwards, when Biden met with the families. First, there's Mark Schmitz, the father of Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz. Mr. Schmitz told the Washington Post that because of the watch incident, Schmitz glared hard at the president. So Biden spent more time looking at Schmitz's ex-wife, repeatedly invoking his own son, Beau, who died 6 years prior. When he just kept talking about his son so much, it was just, my interest was lost in that. I was more focused on my own son than what happened with him and his son. I'm not trying to insult the president, but it just didn't seem that appropriate to spend that much time on his own son. Then there's Gianna McCollum, the widow of Lance Corporal Riley McCollum, both seen here. Gianna also met with Biden after the ceremony. Riley's sister, Royce McCollum, told the Washington Post that Gianna felt the president's words were scripted and shallow, a conversation that lasted only a couple of minutes in total disregard to the loss of our Marine, our brother, son, husband, and father. Now, you might be thinking that she's dealing with a tragedy and probably would have felt that way no matter what Joe Biden said to her. But I think we should give her the benefit of the doubt that it sounded scripted based on Biden's remarks in the past.
I know what it's like to lose a loved one so suddenly. It's like a black hole in your chest you feel like you're being sucked into. That black hole in your chest, you feel like you're being sucked into it. Some of you still have that feeling like you've been sucked into a black hole in your chest. You know, it's like a black hole in the middle of your chest. Like there's a black hole in their chest. You feel like there's a black hole in your chest you're being sucked into, and you feel like you're pulled into a black hole inside your chest, and everything, you can't, and it's hard.
Anyway, when it comes to having a conversation with someone grieving over the loss of a loved one, there is one simple rule. Shut up and let that person talk. But it appears that Joe Biden is more concerned with working through his own grief. Gianna's sister-in-law recounted that Gianna left disappointed. The president, she said, kept checking his watch and bringing up Beau. And with that said, Joe Biden is a pathetic excuse for a human being. Next, there's Cheryl Rex, the mother of Lance Corporal Dylan Marola. Recently, at a congressional forum, she recalled her meeting with Joe Biden.
When Joe Biden, our elected president, entered the room, when he approached me, his words to me were, my wife Jill and I know how you feel. We lost our son as well and brought him home in a flag-draped coffin. My heart started beating faster, and I started shaking knowing that their son died from cancer and they were able to be by his side. Also wondering how someone could honestly, be so heartless to say he knew how I felt a little over 24 hours and learning of my son's death.
That is messed up, right? Remember when we were told that Joe Biden is supposed to be the most empathetic person on the planet?
Everyone has a story about Joe's caring and empathy.
That compassion, that empathy is part of his character.
Empathy.
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 Joe Biden's empathy.
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 Joe Biden's empathy is genuine. You can feel it.
Empathy.
However, the constant sharing of the story about how his son died from cancer, which has nothing to do with being murdered in a terror attack, does not qualify as empathy. Mark Schmitz did not want to hear about Beau. He wanted to talk about Jared. Eventually, the parents took out a photo to show Biden. I said, "Don't you ever forget that name. Don't you ever forget that face. Don't you ever forget the names of the other 12. And take some time to learn their stories." Biden did not seem to like that, Schmitz recalled, and he bristled, offering a blunt response. "I do know their stories." And that sounds exactly how Joe Biden would react in that situation. So much for Captain Empathy, huh? Then there's Marine Sergeant Tyler Vargas Andrews, who survived the bombing, but ended up losing his right arm and left leg. Sean Ryan, who has one of the most important channels on YouTube right now, sat down with Sergeant Vargas Andrews for an extensive interview. Here's his recollection of his meeting with Joe Biden.
Like, remember him coming up to me, trying to shake my hand. Like, try to shake my right hand. And I look at him, and I'm like, I don't have an arm.
Typical Joe Biden.
And my left arm is in this big-ass cast with this giant orange foam block around it. I completely immobile. All I can do is move my head. My arm's gone. I'm like, I don't have an arm. And he says, oh, and like kind of stands up. And then like goes over to reach for my fingers, because about an inch of my fingers are showing, and just like grabs my fingers. Doesn't greet me or anything, just that's what happened, just grabbed my fingers. And I was like, okay, that's weird.
And if you think that was bad, just wait, because it gets worse. And I think you can guess what happened next.
And, you know, almost immediately starts talking like about how their son served in the military. Doesn't say anything about what happened. Starts talking about how their son served in the military. And my mom is just like, she's furious at this point. And he comes over to me and he leans over me. And I have a picture of this to prove it. I'll show you this picture that I have. It's a pretty funny picture. He leans over me and he's like this close to my face. And he's like, what do you want? And I said,
what do you want?
Yeah, he said, what do you want? And I said, what? He said, what do you want? And I'm just like confused. I just got blown up. I just saw my friends die next to me. I'm like, I just want to be myself. And he's like, huh? And my mom's furious. And she's like, he said he just wants to be himself. He just wants to be him. He said he just wants to be me. And he goes, oh, okay. And they just continue to talk about everything but what just happened.
Again, when you meet with victims and their families, shut the f up and listen, especially if what they're going through is your fault.
After this encounter, I have never had any personal correspondence, nor has my son been honored or his name spoken by this commander-in-chief or his administration.
And this is incredibly important to point out. Joe Biden has never spoken their names during a speech or memorial service, never. The closest that Joe Biden has come to doing so includes this written statement from August 30th, 2021, where he listed the names of the 13 service members, which includes a misspelling of Marine Corps Sergeant Johanny Rosario Picardo's name. 2 years later, it remains uncorrected. And in August 2022, Joe Biden released a second written statement instead of holding an event marking the 1-year anniversary. But to be fair, Joe Biden had a pretty good excuse for not taking the time to give a speech that day. Let's just say he was busy.
Tonight, President Joe Biden. The nice thing about this is you can outrun the Secret Service. This is the only time you get to drive is when you're with me.
It is. It's a God's truth.
I know, it's funny.
And I miss it.
I know.
That's right. According to Biden's public schedule, on the 1-year anniversary of the airport bombing, Biden took a trip to Beltsville, Maryland to tape an episode of Jay Leno's Garage, because priorities or something. But he has taken the time to hold multiple events to commemorate January 6th, and has the time to hold events to commemorate women's basketball teams, World Series champions, and Super Bowl champions. Furthermore, he's taken the time to memorialize the names of lives lost in a mass shooting in Monterey Park.
Mr. Ma, age 72, a pillar of the community, a beloved manager and dance instructor at Star Ballroom. He walked patrons to their cars at night, helped new immigrants find jobs.
He's taken the time to honor the names of the lives lost in a mass shooting in Buffalo, New York.
And Celestine Cheney, 65 years old, brain cancer survivor, churchgoer, bingo player.
And he's taken the time to read the names of tornado victims in Mississippi.
13 people who passed, many of whom I met their families. Melissa Price, Lonnie Price, Mary Bush, Doris Harris, David Moore.
Now, obviously, I have no problem with Joe Biden honoring victims of tragic events. However, he has never spoken the names of the 13 killed in Kabul in public. It is painfully clear that unless something is A, politically convenient, or B, politically beneficial, that Joe Biden has no use for it. And the service members that died under his command fall into neither of those categories. And that's why, even on a basic human level, Joe Biden is the failure in chief. With that said, I would like to take a moment to honor the fallen service members from the Kabul terror attack. It's the least we can do. Marine Corps Staff Sergeant Darren T. Hoover, Marine Corps Sergeant Johanny Rosario Picardo, Marine Corps Sergeant Nicole L. G., Marine Corps Corporal Hunter Lopez, Marine Corps Corporal Dagan W. Page, Marine Corps Corporal Humberto A. Sanchez, Marine Corps Lance Corporal David L. Espinoza, Marine Corps Lance Corporal Jared M. Schmitz, Marine Corps Lance Corporal Riley J. McCullum, Marine Corps Lance Corporal Dylan R. Marola, Marine Corps Lance Corporal Kareem M. Nakui, Navy Petty Officer 3rd Class Maxton W. Soviak, and Army Staff Sergeant Ryan C. Knaus. Let's never forget these heroes and their sacrifice. As always, thanks for watching.